Dosa is a popular snack in the nation of India. It's a thin pancake or a type of crepe. It can be filled with vegetables or potatoes or anything really. And an Indian food product company recently hoped to fill the Guinness Book of World Records with a superlative dosa, the longest one ever made. 75 chefs were recently gathered for this event. After practicing for days in advance, they all got together last Saturday, poured the batter onto a custom pan, a really long one, and when the right time was called out, they simultaneously started rolling the dosa in the hopes that it would beat the previous record set in 2014. That was a crepe measuring 54 feet 8 inches long. Once the new one was completed, it measured 123 feet long. So a representative from Guinness said they not only broke the record, they nearly doubled it. Whoever was able to eat it got a serious dosa. From India, we're headed to Nepal next on The World from A to Z. I'm Carl Azuz. Welcome to the show. Nepal is a landlocked Asian country between India and China. The CIA estimates that about 25% of Nepal's 31 million people live below the poverty line. Some of these people are bonded laborers, those who agree to work or in many cases are forced to work in order to pay off a debt. Some human rights organizations say bonded labor is a form of modern-day slavery. The U.S. government pays for a program that aims to help former bonded laborers in Nepal get back on their feet. The program's run through the International Labor Organization, the ILO, which is part of the United Nations, and it says it's helped several hundred bonded laborers who've been freed. But the issue affects many thousands.
Pulatia Sade is here early every morning, tilling the fields and tending livestock that's not his own. Sade will see none of the fruits born from his sweat. His work is going to pay off a debt first taken generations ago.
I was told I had to work because my father and forefathers had not paid back what they had taken from the landlord.
Sade is a member of the Dalit community and a specific group of people known as the Harawa Charawa. The words translate roughly into English as tiller and cattle herder. The ILO estimates there are more than 100,000 Harawa Charawa across Nepal. And it's not just men working to pay off the loans.
We are bonded to work for our landlord. The whole family is working for the landlord. We work for him, and our children also work for him. We also want for our children to get proper education, and for them to be able to earn and take care of themselves.
In 2022, the Harawa Charawa received a major victory. Nepal's Prime Minister announcing the liberation of the Harawa Charawa people. It marks the first time the government formally acknowledged the issue of bonded labour affecting them. Still, despite the declarations, progress has been slow.
People like us now have nowhere to go to look for work, and we are compelled to go back to the landlord to ask for work.
Hello, sir. Namaste. Are you the owner? What do you say to those who accuse you and people like you, landowners in this area, of basically being slave owners, of using and exploiting these people for your benefit? You don't agree?
No.
Why? That's what you're doing.
I tell them to go back home and stay there. I encourage them to go home, and their children will provide them medicine, and that they will take good care of you. But they don't go. They say they'll die if they go home. So what can I do? They are staying here on their own will. They have no pressure whatsoever to continue to stay with me and work for me.
But for Fulatia and Koshila, it's a dilemma. Their hope is that with education and organisation, the debt that should have been worked off generations ago won't be shouldered by the next.
World knowledge. Name the longest-serving Russian or Soviet leader. Is it Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Nikita Khrushchev, Vladimir Putin? Having served as Soviet Communist Party leader and dictator from 1924 to 1953, Joseph Stalin was in power the longest.
Current Russian President Vladimir Putin's on track to exceed Stalin's record. Putin has been either president or prime minister since 1999, and in last weekend's presidential election, he won another 6-year term, as expected, with more than 87% of the vote, according to Russia's Central Election Commission. There were no serious challengers on the ballot, and several Western leaders called the election a sham or a fraud, while leaders of countries including China, North Korea, Venezuela, and Uzbekistan congratulated the 71-year-old Russian president. On this date in world history. For the second time in 12 years, the United States entered a military conflict against Iraq. President George W. Bush ordered airstrikes on the Middle Eastern nation on this date in 2003. The U.S. and dozens of allied countries were looking to remove Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein from power. He was believed to have weapons of mass destruction, but none were ever found. Hussein's government collapsed 3 weeks after the conflict began, and he was arrested later that year and executed in 2006 after being found guilty of crimes against humanity. On this date in 1918, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson signed a bill establishing the periods of standard and daylight saving time. It meant turning the clock forward an hour in the spring and back an hour in the fall. The bill also created 5 time zones across America: Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific, and Alaskan. Apparently, so many gamers find it annoying when they can hear someone else eating while on a headset that Doritos came up with noise-canceling software to mute the sound of crunching. Some reviewers have said it actually works for actual Doritos, but not well for other types of chips. Here's the bigger story in terms of how this was done and what it might mean for future technologies.
Cancel crunch in real time. Doritos silent. Game on, crunch off. Download now.
Nothing's changed about the chips, but gamers can download software that will filter out crunching noises from their microphones, while still allowing them to carry on a conversation. How is that even possible? Well, it's all about the physics of noise cancellation. Here's a visual representation of a sound wave. If we have another identical sound wave, we end up with a louder sound. But if we take that same wave and offset it, the two waves neutralize each other's output. Noise-canceling technology samples ambient noise and adjusts to create an exact opposite sound wave. But most situations aren't as simple as our example. The low hum of a motor is not too difficult to recognize and cancel, but the unpredictability of human voices is much more challenging. Until recently, noise-canceling tech was either on or off. It wasn't possible to be selective. But now, engineers have developed a way for users to select which noises to cancel and which to let through. And that's exactly what Doritos has done. The AI software was trained using more than 5,000 crunch sounds. And since it was trained using only Doritos, it's not going to work quite the same way with other crunchy snacks like carrots. For now, the tech is just available for gamers, but in the future, maybe it'll work on phone calls too.
Utah is known as the Beehive State, but it's also where the Timberwolves roam at Mountain Green Middle School. Miss Davis's class is watching from the community of Mountain Green. And in the Badger State of Wisconsin, we're shouting out the Spartans of Somerset Middle School. Mrs. Belial's class is in the village of Somerset. A new work by the street artist Banksy recently appeared in the northern part of the British capital. At first, it might not look like much, someone holding a pump sprayer with green streaks running down a wall. But when you back up and look at this from the right angle, you can see how the artist took a completely bare tree at the park and worked with it. A lot of Banksy's works are temporary, but the local council says it'll leave this one alone. He could sell tickets for it and call it the Banks tree. If no one pickets for it, he could take it to the Banksy. He could make some green from the green that flanks tree and buy more paints he could use to frame the tree with shades that rank free for winter, spring, and fall and have a reason to season the tree for the seasons all. I'm Carl Azuz for the world from A to Z. Thank you for putting up with me and my pun raps. You mean the world to me.